All right, we are ready to get started. Welcome everybody to tonight's Youth in Philanthropy Sudbury Grant Defense presentation. My name is Matt Jose, and I am a program officer at the Foundation for MetroWest. It's my privilege to be your host tonight, but tonight is really going to be a student-centered presentation. I'm just here to sort of provide some scaffolding and allow the students to let you know everything they've learned over the past few months, and really make a critical difference in our nonprofit community with some great grants that they're going to be explaining their reasoning behind, and that they've prepared so hard for tonight. So on behalf of the foundation and my fellow staff members, Caroline, who's going to be managing the logistics on the back end, I just want to thank you for joining tonight. With me on the screen is our instructor, Leah Trianfilidis, and Charlotte Elliott, who is our instructor's assistant, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. But I also wanted to shout out a few more thank yous and then just give you an agenda for what we're going to accomplish tonight. This is our YIP Sudbury program. We're very thankful for the Sudbury Foundation to be generous funders for this program. It allows us to offer this program for free for any student who lives or learns in the MetroWest area. This is Youth in Philanthropy is the longest running youth philanthropy program in the country. We are in our 24th year consecutively, and we're really proud of the students that come through this program who go on to be lifelong philanthropists. What we're going to be doing tonight is we'll share a presentation that the students will be providing that tells you their journey through youth in philanthropy, and then we're going to open it up to our panel for some questions. And we have a panel tonight who are approving the grant recommendations that the students will be offering for us. We're also going to open the floor for guest questions, so feel free to use the chat function. If during the presentation tonight you do have any questions, we'll be answering them and then allowing the students to answer them at the end. We will then take a formal vote for our panelists to approve the grants, and then we'll send you on your way tonight. Before we jump into the student presentation, I'll allow Leah and Charlotte to say hi and introduce themselves as well.
Great, thanks, Matt. Charlotte, if you want to hop in, I'll let you go first.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Elliott. I'm in 10th grade at Wellesley High School, and I was Leah's YIP student last year in the 2021 winter-spring session, and I loved it so much that I applied to be her instructor's assistant. And I really love that YIP allows students, young people, to have real money and make change in the communities that they're a part of.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Trianfilidis. This is my third year with YIP, or teaching YIP, and I'm really excited to hear what this group has to say. They've worked really hard over the past several weeks, have gone through lots of information, have listened to me talk for hours on end each week. So I'm excited to hear from them tonight. And thank you to all the panelists and to the foundation for hosting this, and to the Sudbury Foundation for making this program possible. Without further ado, I'll kick it off to Alden to get us started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alden, and I'm going to be opening up the presentation by talking to you about some of the things that we learned during our time in YIP. So to start off, we learned about the 3 T's. This was one of our earliest lessons, and the 3 T's are like the 3 main pillars of philanthropy. They include time, talent, and treasure, and some examples of using these things include using your time to volunteer at a local hospital, using your talent to make like friendship bracelets that you then donate, or finally using your treasure to donate to various charitable grants. And these are all exhibit acts of philanthropy. We also learned some of the logistical side of philanthropy, such as the differences between a public and a private nonprofit. And this ultimately gave us like necessary context to help us like shape our thinking as we progress into the evaluating stages of the nonprofits. We also learned about the criteria that should be used when reading and evaluating grant applications. We evaluated like the descriptions that were provided to us, the needs of the target population, the impact that we saw, the implementation and ability to complete the said project, the budget, which was new for a lot of us, and evaluation, which sort of brought everything back together. And then finally, we learned about the importance of consensus in group settings, because this because YIP was really centered around communicating and collaborating with our peers. And so by having consensus, we were able to like open our eyes to new perspectives and come to a deeper analysis of the various nonprofits.
Hi, my name is Liam Dolan, and today I'll be telling you about our fundraising process. First off, we broke into 3 separate groups. Oh, I'll start my video. Forgot that. We broke into 3 separate groups: logistics, appreciation, and recruitment. Logistics was in charge of basically anything related to the money that we raised. The appreciation team was in charge of thanking donors for generously donating money. And lastly, the recruitment team was in charge of giving members of YIP ways to approach finding donors. After we were done with the groups, we had to set an overall monetary goal. Some of the things that factored into this decision were things like how many students we had, how many weeks we had, and what we thought was a reasonable weekly goal. We ended up settling on a goal of $1,150, which we surpassed much earlier than expected. Next, we had to actually find donors and raise the money. When finding donors, YIP students use many different strategies, including texting, emailing, and calling family and friends, posting on a group Facebook, and even just talking to different people in hopes of finding people to donate. Lastly, we created a group spreadsheet meant for keeping track of what people did to find possible donors. The spreadsheet was mainly used to keep people accountable for finding people to donate.
Hi, I'm Kaylee, and I'm going to be telling you about the site visits. We ended up offering site visits to 3 of the 5 nonprofits that applied: Elliott Community Services, Maisie Mentoring, and A Place to Turn. We had site visits over the course of 2 weeks, and each site visit was about an hour long. Site visits were very helpful. We got to ask questions and find out more about the nonprofits that were applying for grants, and we also got to see the workers, see their passion for the projects, and learn more about it as a whole.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm going to be talking about the decision-making process. So before we chose to site visit Elliott Community Services, Maisie Mentoring, and A Place to Turn, we individually read through all of the grant proposals and thought of our own pros and cons before meeting in breakout rooms and seeing what other people thought of it and kind of seeing how others were thinking. And then we met in the full group, and there was an open floor for sharing our ideas. And eventually, when it was time to vote for our site visits, we chose on which had no votes against it. So everybody agreed and there was no opposition towards them.
Hi, I'm Reese. I'm going to be talking about the favorite parts of YIP. So YIP taught us a lot about how charities get funded and gave a better understanding of how different organizations work. One of the best parts of YIP was getting to know each other. We played scavenger hunts where you would find an object and talk about its importance to you. We connected with each other through breakout rooms, sharing our ideas on all kinds of topics. Finally, the best part of this class was the supportive environment created by Leah, as well as our peers. It helped us strive for improvement and to participate in topics we were unsure of. And that was truly amazing.
Hi, I'm Lorelai, and I will be telling you about our definition of impact, which is the amount of influence that our money has on a community and how it helps satisfy the community's needs. And we really wanted our money to have a big impact, and we wanted to fund an organization that would use our money to help a vast amount of people while satisfying many needs of the population.
Matt, you can move on to the next one too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aditya, and I will be going over Discovery Museum's organization info. So to start off with, their mission was to create an inclusive environment as a museum that can spark joy, curiosity, and creativity in everyone, no matter what, like race, background, age, or sex. And they primarily they're located in Acton, but serve large they serve large parts of the MetroWest area, and their target population is people of all backgrounds and ages. And their goal is to educate and spark interest in STEAM, basically STEM plus art, with locally through hands-on exhibits. And they've served 76,000 people in total. And yeah.
Hello. Hello, my name is Wyatt Ruff. So specifically, the Discovery Museum's project info, their project was the Open Doors Connection project, which sponsors entries to the museum for those unable to afford it. So they collaborated with a wide range of organizations throughout the MetroWest. One of those was Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Generally, like Aditya said, they also collaborate with, or they help many. They have a wide range of impact within the MetroWest area. That includes most of the towns within the MetroWest is what they had listed on their grant application. Their goal within the next coming 5 years is to increase their open door connections entries by 50%. Their yearly revenue averages to about 1.9 million, and their expenses total roughly to $2 million, with about 1.5 million of that budget goes towards personal related expenses.
Building off that, we felt like there was a lack of clarity in terms of where the money would be allocated, which was a reason why we chose not to fund it. It was a little unclear whether the money was being allocated directly to the program that would sort of bring in more underprivileged people, or whether it would have been going directly into the museum expenses. We felt like it would be hard for the organization and the museum to differentiate where the money would be going. So going back to what Lorelai said, the impact wasn't as clear for us. And then also, while it was a great organization, there were many other organizations that we encountered, which we will talk about later, that fit the issues that we've sort of encountered as high school students, such as like mental health, for example. So bottom line, it didn't really pull our heartstrings as much. And because there's so many great organizations out there, we really had to pay attention to that and like what resonated with us personally. And for many of us, this wasn't really the case. And then also with COVID, we felt like museums in general have sort of declined in admission. So again, going back to that impact, we didn't feel like the money would be best suited to this place, despite like the great educational piece that they were trying to accomplish.
The next proposal we received was from the Horizons of Homeless Children. Their mission was to improve the lives of young homeless children in Massachusetts and help families succeed. The primary town of impact is Framingham. They served about 20 people. And to help communities' needs, this organization provides play spaces for homeless children to help them develop imagination and have a place to they can go that is full of freedom and fun. This organization also tried to add educational aspects to their play spaces to help children develop with resources they may not have had access to before. Their target population is homeless people. And finally, their organizational budget is $10,632,544.
To add on to that, this project was called Bringing Joy and Play to the Young Children of Framingham Shelters, and they designed each play space to be a space where children can learn through games and books, explore their imaginations through arts and crafts, and play with caring, trained volunteers. So they requested $5,000 for play spaces, and one positive of this organization, we thought that the idea of taking children off the streets and making sure each individual lives a well-nourished lifestyle is quite critical. We also thought that this organization tried to add educational aspects to their play spaces to help children develop with resources they may not have had access to before, which is a very unique aspect.
So the reason as to why we didn't necessarily feel as though this organization wasn't the one to fund was because it served, in comparison to others, a limited amount of the MetroWest community with only an estimated 20 members. And another reason was because this organization is already very large and has a very large budget as well, with, I believe, what was previously said, about $10.5 million. So our thought process was that we'd be better off giving to an organization that might need the money, or that might not have access to that money.
Hi, I think Lily's having some technical issues, so I can just hop in for her. For the Maisie Memorial Foundation, their project was a long-term mentoring program for sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school. And they mainly focused on community service, self-improvement, and post-secondary education preparation.
Hi, I'll be doing the organization info. So it basically acts as a support system where older students are matched up with younger ones who are struggling at school, often the ones who are facing the prospect of not being able to graduate in the near future. And they've helped at least 900 students in the last 22 years. And last year, 90% of their mentees graduated high school with 4 years, and 88% are now attending some form of higher education, such as traditional 4-year colleges. And just over 90% of their students come from low or lower income families, and 80% come from minority backgrounds. And currently they're receiving $220,000 in annual revenue, and they're asking for $5,000. So in general, this program's great because it helps improve opportunities and chances of success for struggling students and builds a support system.
Although this foundation helps students, as Aditya explained, who struggle, we thought that this grant could have been a bit more specific and clear. We were nervous if a student got stuck with a bad mentor, they are unable to build a connection, which will lead them to not enjoying this activity. And then also while reading this grant, we realized that this foundation was dependent on external grants, which means they didn't have any earned income. We also were a little confused why this didn't start freshman year, as the grant mentioned, it starts sophomore year. And this program does not fund activities. Although we did not choose this foundation, it is still a great foundation and it's for a really good cause.
Hi, I'm going to now talk about the organization info for Elliott Community Services. Overall, their mission is to provide service for any people who need it in the area. They have services for suicide prevention, homelessness, caregiving support, counseling, and many more. Some of the communities that they serve within the MetroWest area are Medway, Acton, Boxborough, Harvard, and Milford, although during our site visit we learned that they are planning to expand to more in the coming years. They had an annual revenue of about $150 million with a surplus of about $1.5 million.
I'm going to be talking about the project information for the Nand project. So the Nand project was created for the prevention of suicide and the promotion of mental health awareness. And the project budget is around $840,000, and they requested $5,000 for funding to be used for things like transportation to reach students from various schools. And something that we found unique about this project is that it's very necessary in a time like this during a pandemic where you can't really be in touch with everyone, so it could be really helpful.
I'll be presenting the reasons to fund Elliott Community Services. So the first thing we saw from each organization was grants. Arguably, this is the most important thing in choosing which organizations to fund. Elliott Community Services, or the Nand Project, killed it. Their proposal was easy to follow, as well as their goal for helping communities. They provided for 20,000 people in 60 different communities with a small budget, which we could support with our donation. The topic the Nand Project chose was mental health. This idea in our class was popular due to COVID, which took a toll on all of us. Plus, Elliott Community Services was teaching about mental health as well as giving support to those who cannot receive any in their districts. Finally, the Nand Project had a site visit and they responded to all of our questions on their budget and process. And this fills me with confidence knowing that they were prepared and ready to use our money to good use and put our money to good use.
Hi, I'm Matthew, and the second of the two grants being recommended for funding is A Place to Turn. The mission of A Place to Turn is to provide food, diapers, and personal items to people in need within the MetroWest community. The main community being served is Framingham, and they also serve about 20 or so more towns. Some of the others you may recognize are Ashland, Hopkinton, Natick, Wellesley, and Sudbury. Next, the community needs being addressed are food shortages and personal care items. The target population is anyone who's a part of the MetroWest community. And lastly, the organization budget was $561,000.
Hello, my name is Charles, and I will be talking about the Healthy Learners Initiative at A Place to Turn, which provides personal care items to teens. In the past year, they have supported over 1,300 teens with items including teen face wash, deodorant, razors, body lotion, hair ties, and more. The grant proposal from the Healthy Learners Initiative requested $5,000 for this program. The funding will provide bags of personal care goods for 6 months to teens in need. We thought that this project was essential to our community at this time, especially because of the pandemic. Teen personal health is an important need that our communities need to support, and we thought that this project was helpful in that aspect. This project also stood out to us due to their large impact of over 1,000 teens across the MetroWest region.
Hi, my name is Timmy, and I'll talk about why we decided to fund A Place to Turn. So the first reason was they have lots of experience being an organization. They've been around for 43 years, which proves that it's a sustainable organization, and they'll continue to work well. They're also aware of their customers' needs and preferences. They conduct surveys with the customers to see what products they enjoyed or what didn't function the way they expected. They had handled COVID really well. They collaborated with other organizations to get the products that they needed. So, and some stats that they had for 2021 alone was that they had given over 380,000 pounds of food, around 50,000 personal care items, almost 50,000 feminine hygiene products, and almost 100,000 diapers. Lastly, they benefited many people in many towns. Over 19,000 people had gone through A Place to Turn, and like someone stated earlier, it's available in almost 20 towns.
Good evening. I'm Lily Minkoff, she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be discussing the conclusion and mainly about the lessons we've learned during the course of these past couple of months. We learned how to communicate, how to discuss between fellow peers and with people of higher authority about how to apply for grants and such, and to show that we know what we're doing, and to show it formally with ourselves, like voting to see which group that we want to apply for, or just saying, hey, I need help with this. Can I work with you on it? Another thing is organization, how to get things done in an easy way, how to stay on task with a good system like the spreadsheets to show the donations, and how to implement the 3 T's from earlier, the time, talent, and treasure, because that philanthropy isn't just something you learn in a classroom. It's something you have to apply to the real world. You have to do it with time, talent, and treasure, and how to break up into groups and to specifically go apply the 3 T's with these specific goals in mind, with logistics and recruitment.
So in conclusion, just some final thoughts. We learned that it was easier to achieve a goal when we worked together. We learned that working as a group was extremely productive and efficient. And lastly, we were able to develop healthy and responsible habits by contributing to an overall group effort. And that's just what made YIP just such a great experience for everyone.
All right, what a great presentation. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everybody on the screen. I think it's just so impressive and so inspiring to hear from the students in just a short few months, to be able to understand what philanthropy is, to be able to read and evaluate nonprofit grants in an efficient and productive way, and to come to a consensus together where there's 15 students on the screen. You have 15 different ideas coming into a program like this, but to be able to work together, to listen to each other, to respect each other's opinions, and to come to a great decision in funding 2 excellent organizations in A Place to Turn and the Nand project through the Elliott Community Human Services. We do this professionally at the foundation in giving grants, and I always get a new perspective in hearing these grant defense presentations about why we should be funding an organization, or maybe I overlooked something that the students picked up in a grant application. So it's always great to listen to them and to learn from them. So to the students, I learn as much from hearing you guys throughout your presentation than I do, maybe through my own grant presentation or my own grant decisions that we make as a foundation. So thank you, and thank you to Leah and to Charlotte for leading such a great class this semester. At this point, we're going to ask our panelists to come on the screen, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves, but I will mention who they are as they come on. So first we'll have Sarah Lappy, who is a junior board member, joining us. And our junior board is a collection of YIP alumni who are so inspired about YIP and philanthropy that they want to continue to do more. And so the junior board does event fundraising for the foundation. They do outreach for the YIP programs, and Sarah can mention more if she'd like. Amy Werner, who is a friend of the foundation from Village Bank, we're thankful for her to join us tonight. And Jennifer Guades, who's a parent of an alum through this program, and she's also a member of our Professional Advisors Leadership Council. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our 3 panelists, Amy, Sarah, and Jennifer. We can just go in that order. If you want to introduce yourself, and then feel free to ask any question to the students. If you have a specific student you'd like to answer, if not, students feel free to unmute when you feel like you're ready to answer a specific question.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Werner. I'm the Senior Vice President of Retail Banking and Marketing at the Village Bank, but I have a master's degree in strategic fundraising and philanthropy, and I headed up the foundation at Lowell General Hospital for a period of time. And I think through my professional career, I've sat on boards or committees for about 30 nonprofits in different areas. And I just want to applaud all of you. You've done an excellent job. And actually, a little secret, I've done this a few times, and I think this is my favorite one. So you guys did a bang up job. I won't tell you the other high schools that you are competing against, but you did a great job. I actually have 3 questions, so I don't know if it makes sense that I ask them all at once, or Okay, so the first one is, I was curious about the Nand project, if that was named after a specific person, or where did that name come from? Did you guys get that information?
If anyone remembers, feel free to just speak up.
The Nan Project was named after a girl who was named Nan, and she died a few years back from suicide, and her mom and her brother created the Nan Project as part of a memorial for her and having suicide prevention in high schools across MetroWest.
So I can see where that was, you all kind of talked about the empathy or the heartstrings. And I think when it's attached to a person, that can really resonate with part of your decision making. The other thing is you talked about how you did your own fundraising and how you use texting and maybe social media. Talk to me a little bit about the campaign and then sort of what your ask was and who you sort of appealed to for money.
I mean, personally, for like Thanksgiving, I kind of went around to like all my family members and like asked them to donate because it was like the season of giving, and I got a lot of them to donate. So that's how I personally did it.
Yeah, I first started by like laying the groundwork about like what YIP really is. And then I sort of explained like what I thought were like the two main reasons like why someone would want to donate to YIP. First, it like goes back into the foundation and gives more kids like us the opportunity to go through a class like this. But then it also, the money will be going to these organizations. So I think like the twofold benefit of it really helped my like pitch.
To add on to that, we also had a tracker where each week we would log who we asked, what we said, and if they donated or not. And everyone continuously filled that out, and we, like we mentioned, passed our goal, which was amazing. And we also would like to thank everyone who's on this who actually donated, because it's such a great help and your money is going to a great cause.
Awesome. And then my final question is, being a part of this program, do you think now it will influence who you think about giving your charitable giving, or maybe in your household and talking with your families about where they might give? Do you think that the education that you received as part of this will have you kind of think differently about who you reach out to with donations?
Personally, YIP's helped me identify how, and like, first of all, it's helped me learn how these sort of nonprofits and organizations are structured. And then I think from this experience, I can now analyze details from organizations and figure out where my money is going, is making the most impact, and being able to identify which ones seem more legitimate. Things like that.
I think it helps me sort of like recognize what really matters to me. Like maybe like in the outside world, we might not have the opportunity to like go through specific budgets, but I think while that was a central component to YIP, we also learned like how to just like resonate with a specific organization. And so I think just that piece will definitely be something that I can apply to in my future.
Awesome. Well, those are my questions. Great job again.
Excellent. We can have Sarah go next.
Hi, I'm Sarah Laffey. I'm currently a part of the YIP Junior Board, and I'm a senior in high school. I did YIP my sophomore year of high school, I believe, which has felt like ages ago with COVID. I just have two questions, and I want to say that this presentation was really great. You guys were very well spoken. I'm very impressed. I know a lot of high schoolers who are not as well spoken as most of you guys. My first question is, you mentioned some COVID, some parts about COVID in your decision making. How do you think you would have decided differently, if you do think you would have decided differently, pre-COVID versus now?
I think definitely what was a big factor was mental health, because a lot of people like over COVID had problems with that. And I saw a lot with that in the school, started to talk more about that. So we actually started to learn about that. I feel like if I'd done this before COVID, then I might have overlooked that section and wouldn't have thought about it as much, or thought it was as important as other things.
I think another way also that that might have impacted our decision making was some of the organizations, such as the Discovery Museum, which mainly operates as a business in addition to their Open Door Connections program. But their organization in general was severely impacted throughout this pandemic due to the fact that they weren't gaining as much profit from people who aren't part of their Open Door Connections program, like a lack of customers essentially. So sometimes it was apparent that it made it the struggle for these organizations a little bit more. So it kind of spoke, I guess, to the soundness of those organizations as well.
Awesome. And my second question is, what part of YIP did you find the most difficult? And was this surprising or something you thought you would find difficult?
In my opinion, the most difficult part was like our first couple of meetings, everybody meeting each other, like the awkwardness through Zoom, like not the in-person experience. But as sessions went on and we were split into breakout rooms, you really could form connections with others. And after the first couple of meetings, it wasn't awkward at all. But like the first couple meetings, awkwardness was probably the hardest part, like opening up to people and telling them who you are.
One of the hardest parts for me was because every grant that we received was really well written, and obviously we had to reject some of them, and we had to reject a lot of grants just because of like very small details. And to me, it was kind of hard to say like, we're not going to give you any money just because something really small, but because everything was so good, it had to be like really perfect for us.
I also think just like reading the budgets and making sense of it as like high schoolers was like really hard. And I didn't think it was like as intricate as it is, but you really do need like a magnifying glass as you're going through each part. Like there were a lot of little sections that we didn't even like know what it really meant. So like in conversing with like Leah and Charlotte and like learning from like what they know, we first had to like learn what the things we're even asking about and then making sense of like the various breakdowns. So I think that was really hard.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. 2 thumbs up, by the way. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for all your hard work. I'm Jennifer Guades. I've been a financial advisor for Wells Fargo Advisors now for 20 years. And my son Dylan was part of the YIP Hopkinton in the fall of 2020. And he's also part of the YIP Junior Board this past year. And I'm also a member of the Foundation's Professional Advisor Leadership Council. So anyway, I just have 2 questions. The first one was when our son Dylan joined YIP or was member of the YIP Hopkinton, the most difficult part was obviously it was a COVID year and they were not able to do a site visit, right? I wasn't sure if you were able to do some site visits at all, and did you find it challenging not to see the organizations in person, or were you able to do like a virtual visit?
We still got to do virtual site visits. Each site visit was like an hour long, and we met with some of the people who worked for the projects. Some of them were definitely very different than others. Like for the Place to Turn, they showed us around and showed us what they were doing, while the other ones, there was more telling us about what their project was. But overall, I still feel like we got our questions answered and got a good feel for what the nonprofit was doing.
Okay. Oh, and my other second question is, thank you so much, Kaylee, for that. My other question is, what was your favorite part of the YIP program, and what would you be sharing with other future YIP members?
I think I would have to say my favorite part was getting to work with everyone and meeting new people. Although Zoom was hard to interact with everyone, it was nice how we could meet people from different places. And I also, like at the beginning of YIP, I didn't even really know what a proposal was or how to understand a budget. So I feel like that will definitely help me moving forward. And also just more about philanthropy in general. It was really cool to like have actual money that we were giving away to different organizations and really making an impact was really cool.
To add on to that, I would also say my favorite part was actually coming to a consensus of our grants we chose, because we read through many grants and we had to dissect them, think of the pros, the cons, and we would limit it down until 5. And then when we came to the consensus of 3, it was kind of like an accomplished, proud feeling because we worked so hard and we finally picked 3 to fund and we worked for it.
All right, thank you so much. Those are my only 2 questions, really easy.
Awesome. Amy or Sarah, did any other questions come up as you're listening to these answers? Just give you a minute to think of anything, if anything.
I guess I just asked the group, after going through this experience, would any of you ever consider a career as either a professional fundraiser or working as an executive director for a nonprofit, or thinking about the nonprofit world as a workplace?
Yeah, I think when you were sort of like explaining like your career path and like your bio, I didn't really know that that was something that could be something that you could like study. And I think that's really interesting. And I definitely think that's something that I'll want to consider going into the future.
Great. Well, thank you, panelists. We'll keep you on the screen a little bit longer. Just before we do our official approval vote. Caroline, I know you chatted to all the people who are guests or parents or guardians who are watching the presentation. Feel free to ask any questions to the students in the chat. We'll give a couple of minutes for those questions to come in. Caroline, if there are any, please feel free to let us know. If not, what we can do is do our panel vote, and then if there are any questions that come in afterwards, that would be great. So officially, Amy, Sarah, and Jennifer, on behalf of the foundation, will you approve the grants that the YIP Sudbury program has recommended for A Place to Turn and Elliott Community Human Services?
I am a yes vote.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, it's unanimous. Great recommendations. Well done, students. I know both those organizations very well, and I think that they'll be very pleased to know that their site visits and their proposals made an impact on all of you. On January 27th, our graduation for our YIP programs, we're going to invite those leaders from those organizations to join us, where we can present virtual checks to them. And so they'll be representing their organizations. And so you'll get a chance to be on a Zoom with them at the end of September. And all the parents and guardians who are here, you'll be welcome to join us for that as well. Does it look like we have any questions that have come in the chat? Leah or Charlotte, would you like to add anything or ask any questions before we finish up tonight?
I was just going to say, so we don't always have time, but we try to end every session with shout outs, which is when we can just kind of give a virtual pat on the back to each other for certain things. So I just wanted to shout out the whole group. I know doing a group project is always hard, but doing one virtually and communicating via Zoom and Google Docs and email and all that can be very complicated. And I know it's a busy time of year and people are sick and people have other extracurriculars. So I just want to shout out all the students for making this a priority. You did it. It was amazing. And I'm sure I'll be hearing high praises from now until the end of graduation about how great this presentation was. So I'm very proud of you guys.
Awesome, thank you. So before we finish up, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who joined tonight. Thank you to the students. Thank you to the Sudbury Foundation. And for all the YIP students, you've got one more week of classes and then graduation. But your YIP opportunities don't end there. As Sarah said, and as Jennifer's son Dylan has shown, there are opportunities to follow on your philanthropic journey afterwards. The first one obviously being the junior board. We also have instructors assistance roles like Charlotte is serving in this for this group. And then we'll also have different alumni opportunities. So make sure to stay in touch with us. January 27th, make sure everybody keeps that on their calendar, save the date, and we'll be sending out a Zoom link for that as well. So just, yeah, on behalf of the foundation, on behalf of my colleague Caroline, thanks everybody for joining tonight, and have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.